Welcome to day 15 of the 21-day de-stress program, and today I'm talking about food and how it affects our mood and how we can eat for a less stressful life. So why food affects our mood? Well, it's about our blood sugar. So if you have children or you're around children a fair bit, you'll be familiar with a typically hungry child and how their mood can be transformed within a few minutes when they eat something. And really it's the same for adults, it's just that sometimes it's not quite as obvious. But when your blood sugar dips and you're hungry, you could be irritable and grumpy, you might feel unwell, you might get dizzy. And eating to keep our blood sugar stable is the best thing we can do to keep our mood fairly constant. So on this graph you can see really clearly what happens when you have stimulants or sugary foods. You get that red line, those big highs and lows of blood sugar. And when it dips down, that's when we feel a bit rubbish. So then we tend to grab a sweet sugary snack or a cup of coffee, and that will zoom our blood sugar back up again. And we get those big highs and big lows. And that causes the most problems in terms of our stress levels. And what we're aiming really for stressless eating is to keep our blood sugar as constant as we possibly can. So we're looking to try and get it something like the green line on the graph. So, which foods will cause you stress? The big ones won't be surprising to you, but might be a bit disappointing. Caffeine, dairy, sugar, starchy carbs like pasta and potatoes, bread and rice, alcohol and fizzy drinks, sugar-free drinks, and cigarettes and recreational drugs. They're all the culprits, and I'm going to talk about each of those in a little more detail for you. So caffeine, and really loads of people reach for coffee or tea in the morning or during the day just to give them a little pep up, a bit of a perk up, get them going. And it will crash your blood sugar maybe 30 to 60 minutes after you've had it. So it is a good way to get going, but you will see that big dip quite soon afterwards. However, if you're planning on exercising, you will find that caffeine can be quite helpful. So it'll give you an extra energy boost for your exercise, and then your body will use up the excess cortisol that's produced from the caffeine. So it won't really create that big dip again afterwards. But I would try, if you drink a lot of caffeine, to replace some of your drinks either with water, and a lot of people are dehydrated, so drinking more is a really good thing, or with herbal teas. So have a go at doing a bit of that. The next thing on the list is dairy, which may surprise you, and a lot of people have quite a lot of milk or cheese in their diet. But dairy products are high in sugar, so milk sugar is lactose, and essentially you're consuming sugar when you eat dairy products. And it's very common for people to be intolerant to cow's milk, although sometimes they don't realise that they are, but they do feel a lot better when they cut it out. So if you want to have some dairy, I would recommend focusing more on having some goat's cheese, some plain yogurt, and maybe butter. And they're pretty good for most people. But I wouldn't worry about the calcium levels. So people say, well, if I don't have dairy, I'm not getting enough calcium. To be honest, it's not the best form of calcium for the human body. So your bones aren't going to fall apart. If you're eating seeds, nuts, fish, green leafy vegetables, they're all much better, more easily absorbed sources of calcium than dairy products. So don't worry on that score. So sugar is a pretty obvious one. People who don't drink tea or coffee often reach for sugary chocolate bar instead to give them that little buzz, give them the pick-me-up. But sugar does just put your blood sugar on a roller coaster. So it gives you a big high really quickly and then a big crash. And when you think about most breakfast cereals, and that includes the healthy ones like muesli, they're almost always laden with sugar. Dried fruit is very, very high in sugar, as well as starchy carbohydrates. So we're going to talk a bit about breakfast in a minute, because it is a good meal to reassess and perhaps change. And sadly, fruit is full of sugar. and has the same effect on the body. So if you are eating a bit of fruit, try and have it with some protein, which won't have nearly such a significant effect. So, moving on to starchy carbs. Now, things like white potatoes, rice, pasta, bread, they essentially have the same effect in the body as eating a bar of chocolate. So, unless you're exercising, then they are being used as sugar in the body and converted straight into sugar. So you're getting that big blood sugar crash again. And that's why a lot of people feel sleepy after lunch when they have a sandwich, but okay if they maybe have a salad or something without the starchy carb element. So a bit of starchy carb is not the end of the world. Try and combine it with some protein. For example, some peanut butter on toast for breakfast or an egg on toast, something like that. And that actually will keep the effect of the carbohydrate, keep the energy flowing for longer, and you won't get such a big energy crash soon afterwards. In terms of drinks, alcohol really is just sugar, and so are fizzy drinks, and best avoided really. Fizzy drinks are really detrimental to the body in lots of ways, and I could talk about that for hours, but I won't. Sugar-free drinks are not a good substitute. So the artificial sweeteners such as aspartame and sucralose are really just poisons to the body and really should be avoided. And whilst I'm talking about artificial sweeteners, most commercial chewing gums contain artificial sweeteners as well. So avoid those too. You can get naturally sweetened chewing gum from health food shops which contains xylitol, but be a bit cautious with that because it can be a laxative. So just be careful. Cigarettes and recreational drugs, they are stimulants, so they will give your body the high very quickly and then a crash quite soon after. And because we're aiming to keep blood sugar as level as possible, they need to be avoided as far as you can. So you're probably thinking, good grief, what can I eat? So let's think about protein. So protein doesn't have the same effect on the blood sugar as carbohydrate. So if you eat protein with every meal, it will help your blood sugar stay closer to that green line on the graph we looked at earlier. You may also want to have meals more often, so perhaps eating 4 or 5 times a day, and that will help balance your blood sugar. And over time, you may be able to reduce back down to 3 meals as your blood sugar becomes accustomed to stabilising. Vegetables, you can eat as many as you can. They are a carbohydrate, but they're not a starchy carb, so they're not having that blood sugar effect. And healthy fats are really important. Your brain needs them. So butter, avocado, olive oil, which should be only used cold, so perhaps as salad dressings, and coconut oil, which you can heat. So they're really important for overall health. So ideas for proteins for you. Meat is a great place to start. Organic and grass-fed if you can get it. Farm shops are a very good place to buy your meat. Processed meats, by that I mean things like ham, bacon, sausages, those kind of things. So just be cautious about the amount of that you eat. Eggs are a brilliant source of protein, as is fish. Nuts and seeds are great and ideally should be soaked overnight if you can. And pulses like chickpeas and lentils are a very good source of protein, although some people find them quite hard to digest and they might make you quite windy, especially if you're a blood type O. And quinoa is a grain, spelt quinoa, and really great in salads, and you can add it to soup. And it doesn't have a very strong flavour, but it's quite a good source of vegetable protein. Other things you can look to do, so substitute your normal white potatoes with sweet potatoes, and that could be for potato chips or just for baked potatoes, just for adding them to casseroles and so on. You can get something called a spiralizer, which makes courgette spaghetti, which is a great alternative to pasta spaghetti. And if you're eating fruit like berries or apples, or any fruit really, but those berries and apples are not so going to accelerate your blood sugar as much as a lot of other fruit, but eat them with a few nuts to slow the absorption of the fruit sugars there. And a really good snack, chopped up peppers, carrots, cucumber and celery, and you can have that with some hummus or guacamole or another dip, and that's a great snack and really filling. So what things you might do. Have protein for breakfast. So breakfast is a tricky meal because our culture is so ingrained that we have things like cereal or we have toast and jam, all of which are real blood sugar altering foods. They're really not a great way to start the day. So try and have nuts or eggs or even bacon and egg for your breakfast every day. If you want to go a bit posh, then you can have scrambled eggs with smoked salmon on top, maybe with a bit of toast underneath, and that's a really good beginning for the day. And then try to replace one of your stress foods or drinks with a healthy option. So if you're drinking 5 cups of coffee, decide that you're going to have 3 or 4 and you're going to drink extra water every day. And soon we'll be releasing the Healthy Living recipe book, and everything in there is based upon this style of eating. So you'll find that packed full of useful information. So in summary, it's about balancing your blood sugar. And the way you can do that is to reduce the stimulants and the starchy carbs, and to have more protein and healthy fat, and maybe eat more often to maintain even blood sugar levels. So I hope that's been useful for you today. You don't have to go and do everything on the list, but there might be some stuff in there that you can take on board that will help you lead a less stressed life. So enjoy the rest of your day, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.